Hello, everybody. Welcome to Life with Mover. We're going to talk about books today. We talked about the writing update before. I don't have a really good update on the next Shepherd book. I'm still, probably 5 chapters-ish from being done. It's a very slow process at this point, just because all the other stuff. But today, a friend of mine recently made the cover reveal for his new book. And when he did that, he was approached by a hybrid publishing company. And he asked me, he said, "Hey, what do you think I should do?" So that kind of triggered the idea in my head that, hey, maybe we should talk about traditional publishing versus self-publishing versus hybrid publishing, and kind of my experiences having written my first book now 8 years ago and put out 10 books, some of which have been Amazon bestsellers. But I will caveat that I've only done self-publishing. So I'm by no means an expert, but I do have a little bit of experience, and hopefully this can help you if you're thinking about writing a book and stuff like that. So we're just going to go through the pros and cons for each, starting with traditional publishing. So traditional publishing, it's what everybody thinks about when they think they're going to write a book. I mean, it was the first thing I did too. You think, hey, I wrote this book, I'm going to be rich. It's going to be in bookstores everywhere. One day I'm going to be in the airport and look over and see somebody reading my book, and it's going to be awesome. It is a tough industry to break into. When I first started, I wrote Spectre Rising in 2013. I did one query letter and was rejected. So the way it works is typically, I mean, there are exceptions, but typically you write your book if it's fiction, or you do a concept if it's nonfiction. You do a query letter, so it's a kind of a synopsis, introduction of yourself. They have formats and stuff. Agents are very particular about the way they want things. They're the gatekeepers. So you query an agent, and the agent will say, "Yep, I'm interested," or "Thanks, but no thanks." You'll get a lot of thanks, but no thanks emails. Even if you're very successful, you'll get a lot of thanks, but no thanks emails, because some people just think, I can't represent it, or, I'm not looking for clients right now. So they will, once you get an agent, then the agent will go to editors at the publishing houses and get your book published. Well, you think, well, I'm done, right? Not necessarily. So at that point, the publishing starts, and everybody kind of, the misconception here is that they're going to support you and you're going to be on all the talk shows and stuff like that. What I learned in my research is that that is more for the Brad Thors and the Vince Flynn's and the ones that, the Tom Clancy's, the ones that have a huge following and a huge backing, and they are spending a whole bunch of money on them because they have this persona and they have this image. Most books that are published don't ever make the advance. So typically when they sell the rights to the book, you'll get an advance. Part of that's going to go to that agent that I just talked about, and the rest of it's going to go to you. And for every book sold, the royalty goes against your advance. And so you finally meet that advance, whether it's a $5,000 advance or a $10,000 advance. Probably not going to get a whole lot much more than that on your first book. It could be the next great bestseller, but typically for new books, it's very low. And a lot of people don't ever make that. So if everything goes against the advance, and then they take a royalty share after that, they'll send you a check or whatever. The royalty share that you get, so the amount of money as a percentage of gross sales that you get for traditional publishing, is the lowest of all three that I'm going to talk about. And that's just because they're doing all the work for you. They're going to do the marketing to some degree. And again, it depends on which publishing house you go to. If it's a smaller boutique house, you're probably not going to get a big marketing budget. Bigger houses, maybe. We've had authors on the channel that have been traditionally published, and they don't get any support at all. I mean, they're just like, here you go. That's it. It's over. However, the potential is there to get a lot more horsepower, and they will do the cover for you. They'll do the editing for you. They'll do all the stuff. So it's kind of just a fire and forget as far as writing goes, because they'll do all the nitty gritty stuff. And then at that point, it's on you to market your book and to create a brand image and stuff like that. So there's still a lot of work involved. It's not that easy. The next one I'll talk about, and this is what prompted this vlog, is the hybrid method. So in the last, I don't know, 6 to 9 years, a hybrid publishing platform has kind of come to be. It used to just be you were traditionally published or self-published. And with self-publishing, it was kind of a scarlet letter for the longest time. And this is what happened to me, is that once you self-published a book, then the traditional publishers didn't want you because it already had an ISBN. It already had been out in the public, and unless you were somehow a bestseller or made a movie out of it or something, they had no reason to pick you up because they already said, well, look, you didn't sell anything. Why would we pick you up? So it was kind of a scarlet letter. Then came the hybrid publishing model, and this is what my friend kind of ran into and why he was asking me. So these companies will come out, and this particular one, I'm not going to name names or anything like that, but they comes out and they say, hey, we saw you did your book. That's awesome. Their offer was they would publish his book, and they would take the first $1,000 of royalties would go against the cover and the editing. So they had people to do cover and editing and all that stuff, but they would that first $1,000 of royalties made would cover that stuff. And then it was a 50% royalty share. And what I wasn't clear in looking at it, whether it was 50% of the distribution channels or 50% overall. I'm hoping it's 50% overall, but if it's 50% of distribution channels, it's even worse because distribution channels also take their cut of the revenue. And I'll get into that in the self-publishing phase, but Amazon, for example, if you price the book at $2.99 or greater, they take 70%. If you price it $2.99 or less, I think it's 35%. So 50% of 70%, you can see where they start whittling away. The draw for traditional publishing is they have a distribution network. So they can get you in bookstores, they can get you book signings, they can get you, in the airports and all the places that you want to be. If the hybrid method, though, is actually just someone else self-publishing for you, essentially. So like this place, they talk about, well, their distribution channels are Kindle, Apple, and I think Audible for audiobooks and stuff like that. So the print is print on demand. So it's not, books built or printed in a warehouse, they're shipped to a distributor, they go to the bookstores. It's the exact same thing as if you were self-publishing. The pluses and minuses, the pro, they're doing some of the work for you. So they're doing all the editing and the book cover design and stuff. So you don't have to go and find the right cover designer. You don't have to find the editor, and you don't have to do all that stuff. They also have, some of them have marketing tools. They have mailing lists, they have, vlogs and blogs and all that stuff that they can help you marketing. And that's why they're taking a cut. What I caution with stuff like that, and the reason I told my friend, hey, probably not, is you have to look at the successes of the other books. So Amazon does a great job of actually kind of telling you how a book's doing. It gives you an Amazon ranking in the overall sales ranking at the bottom. And roughly about 120,000 ranking means you're selling like 2 or 3 a day. I mean, it's not that much. If it's over 200,000, 400,000 into the millions, it's not selling books at all. And I went and looked at some of the other books that had been sold, and I was like, dude, these guys aren't, they might have this huge mailing list, but they're not using it. They're not selling the books. So, and that's what ends up happening is a lot of people go, oh yeah, I'm finally published, great. And then the book ends up in the nethers because, nobody buys it. They're not putting anything behind it. And you have to do all the work yourself. And you're like, oh crap, now I'm giving away 50% of my royalties and I never even make that back. It depends though. At some point, it is worth it, especially if you don't want to have to deal with doing covers and editing and marketing and, you don't want to have to deal with all that stuff. It could be a good option. I'm not going to say it's always bad. I just realize that it's not everything it's cracked up to be. Moving on to self-publishing, you are it. And the biggest downfall with self-publishing is being able to get distribution. There are ways to get actual in-store distribution. Ingram Spark is one of them. The problem is Ingram Spark is incredibly expensive as far as royalty shares and stuff like that. It is, I mean, when you're talking like a hardcover book, I think one of my books, it's like 7 cents a book because of how expensive it is for distribution. And that, I mean, the books have the stores have to know to order it. You have to do your own calling up stores and saying, hey, will you pick up my book? And they have to. They also have to have an agreement that if it doesn't sell, you buy it back, which is, I mean, or usually buy it back against royalties. But theoretically, if you had a whole bunch of books go to the bookstore and none of them sold, then it's the publisher will either buy them back or destroy them, and that costs money to do that. So it's not the greatest thing, or at least for Ingram Spark. I prefer print on demand because you print on demand. When somebody wants it, Amazon prints it, it sends it to them. The downside is it's not in bookstores, and it's not, you can't get it in hardcover, at least as far as I know, for print on demand like that. Um, Hardcover is just it's such a waste of money as far as um, how much it costs to print versus how much you'd actually make on that. It's not financially feasible to do it in that, and that's why only a couple of my books are in hardcover, because it's just not worth the time to even do, because you got to do a special cover with the flap and everything. It just takes a little bit longer to design everything. But when you self-publish, you are it. You are the publisher. You are the marketing. You hopefully are not the editor. I always recommend outsourcing editing. We talked about in the last vlog, sometimes even people you outsource are not that great at it. Sometimes even bigger booksellers are, they're not that great at editing, but you are responsible for all that. So you have to hire somebody, if you're not going to do it yourself, to do your book cover. And that's not just a nice little pretty design. It's a design in the right PDF format to be on the book, for Amazon, if you're going to publish it that way or whatever. So it's a lot of work. And then marketing, you're on your own. You can go buy ad space on Amazon, BookBub, Facebook, or whatever, but you're on your own. So yeah, it does make hybrid a little bit more appealing because you don't have to do as much stuff on your own. However, your royalty share, if you're on the ball and if you're the one doing it and you've done the research and you figured it out, is going to be the highest if you do it yourself, because it makes sense, right? You're doing all the work. I think more and more self-publishing is losing kind of that scarlet letter. It's still worth your time to try to get traditionally published, because there is that chance that you will get the support and the marketing and everything you need. It's just increasingly more unlikely, and I think the space is going towards ebook stuff. The reason I went to self-publishing, I started talking about that. So I did all these queries, was rejected, decided, hey, this book's awesome, it needs to be out now. It was kind of a stupid decision, but is what it is. And then I published it, and then I finally got a reply from a query letter, and he's like, oh, you already published it? I can't do anything with this, sorry. I did more query letters later on, like with Archangel Fallen, which was the third book. And, I've had some bad experiences with agents in general that just did not work out very well. Two agents, actually. One, he wanted to charge printing because he wanted to print the books out to go hand them, because he felt like if he had to put it on somebody's desk, that was the best way to get a publisher to pick it up. So he charged all kinds of printing costs and stuff like that. And when when you think you're going to do well by doing this, and you finally got an agent, you can get suckered into stuff like this. And the second agent, it was absolute vengeance, and he wanted to change so much stuff that I just told him no, because he was basically trying to redefine the whole thing. So I ended up just sticking with that. And because of the vlog, because I was persistent, I ended up doing better, I think, than if I had traditionally published. And that's personally how it worked out for me. I've seen vlogs, or I've seen things of other authors, different genres that have done really well self-publishing. So it does exist, and it is possible. Amazon has made it real easy. I use Draft to Digital. I'll leave the link in the description, but that's what I use to get my ebook out to all ebook retailers, Barnes & Noble, Apple Books, Kobo Books, all the other retailers other than Kindle. And Kindle, because I use all the other distributors, I can't do Kindle Unlimited. But, Kindle, if you wanted to be exclusive with Kindle, you could be Kindle Unlimited, and they have deals and stuff like that. So I personally just recommend looking at what works best for you and what you have the time to do. Whether you're doing this as a labor of love, which is what it should be. I mean, no one should expect to become rich and famous. We all do, but realistically, don't think that you're going to become this overnight sensation just off of one book. So just think of how you want to do it. If it's a one-off book, and you just want friends and family, and maybe you just self-publish or use the hybrid publishing method or whatever. But if it's something that you think maybe the traditional publishing is the only way to go, then do that. Just realize traditional publishing will also take a lot longer than anything else. I mean, you're talking a year or more lead times by the time you do the agent, by the time you get a publishing company, by the time they print it and they do all their marketing and all that stuff, at least a year from the time you submit it. So it takes a while. The nice thing about self-publishing and even hybrid publishing is the turnaround time is a couple months from the time you finish. Or hell, if you're fast enough self-publishing, you can do it the next day. I wouldn't recommend it, but you can obviously do it. So the only thing I will urge is just get a quality editor, get a good book cover design. That will help if you do the traditional publishing route, the self-publishing route, because it's important. People do judge books by their cover. So anyway, that's kind of my spiel on what I recommend. Obviously, I went self-published, works for me, but any of the options are good. Just know what you're getting into and realize that if your goal is to maximize your profits off of your effort, the best one is self-publishing. The worst one is traditional publishing, and hybrid is kind of this in between. It actually might be worse than traditional because you're not going to sell as many books as if a traditional publishing house is behind you. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.